This book here, A Course in Miracles, is such an inspiration for so many people, but it's also an incredibly challenging read. In fact, most people who pick this book up put it straight back down again, and they miss out on all of its wisdom. But before you put yours down, what if I told you you could understand the Course's teachings through one everyday item? The humble running shoe. Running shoes. They carry such a lot of meaning to the ego. In fact, the Course tells us that the ego tells stories about us through objects like these running shoes. For example, for some people, running shoes, they tell stories of personal bests, pushing yourself past your limits and performance. For other people, these shoes represent a window into their personal stories around weight control and fighting aging and even body image. And then for yet more, they're about escape, a literal metaphor for running away from the pressures of modern life so you can manage stress a little bit better. Maybe for you, they tell a story of past hopes and unfulfilled dreams as they sit on the shoe rack and get forgotten about, almost haunting you with their presence. We all have a unique story that comes up when we see a pair of running shoes like this. And the Course starts right there, teaching us that the meaning objects have in our lives are actually stories that the ego created for us to believe in. But the Course tells us that these shoes don't really represent performance goals or weight control. Instead, they reveal something untrue that we've come to believe about ourselves. Because we're not our performance, or our body shape, or our stress levels even. In reality, are an unharmable spirit. So it's with this that the Course introduces its first really challenging word. Forgiveness. That never gets any easier. Let's find somewhere to talk. So forgiveness in the Course is an awkward word, right? It's like your whole life you've been using the word forgiveness as an umbrella term for when you need to say sorry or accept an apology. But that's really not what the Course is talking about. Because the Course isn't talking about forgiveness of a running shoe, right? That would be absurd. Forgiveness in the Course is all about that story that the running shoe represents about you. You know, that one about performance or body image or weight control or managing stress, that type of thing. So what I want you to do before we go any further is ask yourself a simple question. And that is, what does a humble running shoe mean to you? So if you took the time to do the exercise just then, you'll probably have noticed that even something as simple as a humble running shoe is telling a story about you. It's revealing something that you believe about yourself. And that's not necessarily the truth of who you are according to the Course in Miracles. So actually what we've done is start the process of forgiveness. We've looked at an external object and we've discovered that it's telling a story about us, that we have some kind of narrative about it and belief system around that thing. And that is the start of forgiveness. But the Course doesn't really just leave it there, right? That's just witnessing that there is a story. What the Course does next is to try and bridge us from these beliefs that we have about ourselves that it says is false, and moves us over to a place that is more about peace. So what we're going to do now is head back to the studio I'm going to run you through a little exercise to see if we can move you from this current narrative that you have around a running shoe and move it to what the Course calls a miracle. I'll see you there. Okay, let's experience forgiveness together with a simple exercise. Now, I really want you to get involved with this one, so I'm going to ask you to turn your attention inwards as I'm talking you through everything that I'm going to share with you here. To help, I'm going to blur out the video for a while so you aren't distracted by me, and I'll bring you back when the exercise is done, so it's not your computer going weird on you, okay? Obviously, if you're listening in a car, then come back when you're in a safe place where you can actually turn your attention inwards safely. Okay, if you're ready, close your eyes and just try to relax your face for a moment. Soften your eyebrows and your mouth. Relax your shoulders and just take a couple of deep breaths in and out. Now this part will likely sound a little bit unfamiliar to you, because what I want you to do is allow yourself to have a sense of gentle playfulness wash over you. Notice how this lifts your state slightly. Now, for the fun bit, allow yourself a gentle smile, but not with your mouth. Do it with your eyes. So, even though they're closed, try to project a smile through them. In doing so, you should feel your state of playfulness lift ever so slightly more, as this mild tension spreads across your face that feels kind of nice. Just hold this pleasant sensation for a moment. Then what I want you to do is, in your mind's eye, picture a pair of running shoes and ask yourself one simple little question. Is this story these running shoes represent about me the truth of who I am? Now here's the important bit. Don't try to answer that question. Just let it sit there in this playful curiosity state that you're in. The ego will probably try to justify the story and draw you into impossible metaphysics. But that's okay. Don't fight back. Just notice how the ego wants to shift your relaxed, playful state into something more serious. Okay, take a breath and relax the effort for a minute. Drop the question and return your focus to that soft smile through your eyes and rebuild that playfulness. Then picture the shoes again. This time, focus more on the peace and the joy that you feel in this state whilst you simply picture the shoes in your mind's eye. Just notice the tides shift between the seriousness of the ego and the playfulness of the spirit. And keep coming back to your running shoes with this soft, smiling eyes. I'll leave it for you for just a minute longer, then just play with the question. Does this story that these shoes represent the truth of who you are deep inside you? I'll leave you with that idea just a moment longer, and then I'll come get you. Okay, well done. Bring yourself back to awareness and open your eyes. How do you feel now? Now we've played with this playful curiosity that has a softness and a joy to it. Does the running shoe story connect with you so much anymore? Like maybe you even find it difficult to connect to it at all at this present moment. It'll come back, like down the line. You'll have that same story represented by the running shoe at some point. But right now, do you feel peace with it? Do you feel that the story just doesn't want to resonate with you so much? Well, that there is a miracle, and that is a topic of our final chapter. So you've experienced two things in this little exercise. Number one, you experienced the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit, they say in the Course, has one emotion, and that's joy. And it is looking to bring you towards one state, which is peace. Now, we experience that because when we use this idea of playful curiosity, that playfulness and that smiling through the eyes idea is what brings a sense of joy to you, right? It made things a lot less serious, right? And you could look upon this any object, like running shoes in this scenario, with a sense of playfulness, which essentially is joy. So we experienced the Holy Spirit through that way of looking at things. And then hopefully as you practiced and you played with sort of the tides of change between the ego story and the kind of letting go into a peaceful state, you eventually reached some level of peace. And that is where the Holy Spirit is trying to get you to, according to the Course. So essentially we just took you through the Holy Spirit. And eventually, if you got to that point where the running shoe kind of lost its story, where you could look upon it and have no real thought one way or another to it, you just saw it as a running shoe, you saw it as what it is. That's a miracle. The way that I define a miracle is that you see the same thing without fear. So at one point you saw the running shoe, and whilst you might not label it fear, you saw it through some sort of story that was being told about who you are, which if you dig down into that story, you'll find out that it's actually a story of either resistance, judgment, or control. And they are what I define as the kind of outputs of what fear is: resistance, judgment, and control. So if that story was about, I don't know, say performance, that's a control thing. It's like, I need to perform and I'm going to do this, this and this in order to perform. So you're seeing it through that. If you're seeing it through as your body image, then that's really about resistance. You're just resisting what is, right? And that essentially is a fearful way of seeing things. So the story you held in the beginning is an ego story that's telling you a story about something that is not actually true about you. And then what we did with the Holy Spirit, we went into that state of playfulness. We got curious about the shoe. We started to see whether, it really is representative of our body image or not, or if that's a story that we're telling about ourselves. And we played with letting that go, right, until we found peace. And then you started to look upon the shoe in the end without that story, which is essentially seeing the same object without fear. So what we've done today, we've taken you through the entirety of at least the beginning of the course, when it's looking at the external things in your environment. And we've discovered that those things aren't neutral to us, that they actually tell a story. And then we've looked at that story, changed the way that we see it, and then come to a place of peace where we can look upon that object without the fear. That is the Course in Miracles in a running shoe. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.